And part of your skill set and the knowledge that you share on Instagram is the sort of DNA of letters, which I've found really fascinating. This idea that there's adjustments that you should be looking out for. I mean, whether you're a lettering designer or not, I think it's quite interesting because you go through a series of looking at signs that are already existing in our environments, in our streets, in our
Yeah.
cities, and just give us an idea about actually there's a reason why this doesn't quite work or it doesn't quite look right. And I found that, yeah, fascinating when sort of exploring the world of letters, that actually we don't always have to just take them as they are. There's something that
Mm.
we can explore here. And I wondered if you could share a little bit about these kind of optical, I don't know if they're optical illusions, but they're sort of optical issues, right? And if there's any way of explaining a couple of examples of those. But yeah.
Yeah. So what I do, what you're describing right now, is essentially what I do on my Instagram account, also on my YouTube, which is, I like opening people's eyes to the typography and the stories that they have around. And I always say that, and I do that by showing small examples that you can find on the street, that you can find on a book cover, and I just analyze them, and hopefully that will open people's eyes to small details, or why letter forms are built the way they are. And I always say that we know more about letter forms than we think we do, because we are surrounded by letter forms. Everybody, if I tell you, Laura, you are an expert in this, but if I tell anybody who is not working with letter forms every day, I tell them, hey, draw me an N, they would know how to draw an N, and they would know how to draw an N in a few several shapes. So that means that we work with letters all the time on the texts or the SMS that we send on our phone, on the emails that we write, on the products that we buy. Everything is full of letter forms. Um, and what I love to do with the content that I share is to open people's eyes to the details, the things that make a letter form or be constructed the way they are. So some of the things that I share have to do with, becoming very, or yeah, getting really nerdy around, what are the optical illusions around letter forms. So if we think of the alphabet as the system that lettering designers work with, essentially you can divide the alphabet into three groups of simple shapes. There's the group of the rectangular letter forms, which is, the H or the E or the L. These are, you can recognize them because they are all using straight shapes. There's also the group of the rounded letter forms, and this one is easy because it's like the O or the C or the Q, and these are only rounded shapes. And there's the group of the triangular letter forms, which is, the A and the V and the W, and all
Mm.
of those letters that only have, diagonals. And by understanding these groups, you can then combine DNA from one group with the other, and build new letters. So if you have an H, and I want your listeners to imagine an H, any H. If you have an H and next to it you have an O, and I tell you, hey, now draw a D, you would take a straight shape from the H, right? You can take some DNA, some information from that H, and combine it with the information that the O is giving you, right? There's a curve there. So you can build a D with a part of the H and a part of the O. And this is how you build new letters. And this is how letter forms share their DNA. So if I tell you, okay, imagine an H, keep the H, and now think of an A next to it, and I tell you to build a K, then you have all the information you need in those two letters to build a K, right? So this is what's fascinating about letter forms and the world of letter forms. That is, it's a system. There's a logic to it, and once you understand it, a world of possibilities opens up in front of you. Like, you walk down the streets and you start seeing all these details, and you start understanding why the things look the way they look. And then you can get more nuance. So, for instance, to in order to make a rectangular or sorry a circle look the same height and the same size than a rectangle, you have to make it a little bit bigger. So optically it will look the same, but it will be always a little bit bigger. So this, if you take that, which happens in geometry, and you take it to letter forms, then your O should always be a little bit bigger than your H, right? And I'm thinking in uppercase letters, right? In like the capital
Yeah,
A and the capital O. So you can really get really nuanced and you can get into the details. But what I love is to show first, open people's eye to the system, because there's a system behind letter forms. And then you can put all your expression and your voice um, uh, onto it, right? So lettering designers and lettering artists, they bring their own voice, they bring their own nuance into how the shape of an N looks or how a word looks.
I love it. It's amazing. I love that there is this structure behind it, and there's a real kind of foundation to learn first, where you've got there are rules, and once you've got those rules, you can then start to sort of play within them, right? And I
Yeah.
guess that's the exciting kind of creative side as well.